Have you ever felt as if your chest is carrying a silence so heavy it refuses to move, as if your breath itself is trapped, your lungs rising and falling, yet never truly free? There are moments when the heart screams, but the soul stays quiet. Moments when your voice falters, but your body holds the grief for you, quietly, patiently, like a vessel of sorrow. Grief is strange. It does not always cry out loud. Sometimes it curls itself into a corner of your lungs, sitting there, like an uninvited guest. You don't see it, but you feel it, in the shortness of your breath, in the weight pressing against your ribs, in the sighs that escape without warning. Few people understand this. Your lungs are not just carriers of air. They are the keepers of memory, silence, and sadness too. Think about it. How many times have you swallowed your tears, forcing your breath to stay calm when your heart was breaking? How many times have you buried words inside your chest that were too painful to speak aloud? Every unshed tear, every unspoken word, every suppressed cry, your lungs remembered them all. They became a shadow, breathing within you, long after. The moment had passed, but breath is sacred. Every tradition, every ancient wisdom whispers the same truth. In Ayurveda, it is called prana. In Chinese medicine, it is qi, and in the language of faith, it is the ru, the spirit itself. Breath is not just survival. It is the thread connecting your body to the divine. And yet, when grief is locked inside, this sacred thread becomes tangled, the flow is broken, the silence becomes unbearable. Maybe this is why you are here right now. Because somewhere inside, you too feel the heaviness, the invisible weight pressing against your chest, the fatigue of carrying stories you never told, losses you never mourned, and emotions you never gave permission to breathe. And what if I told you that there is a way to release it? That hidden within your own body is a door, a simple point just beneath the surface, where your grief waits to be freed. By the time you reach the end of this journey, your breath will not be the same. You will not only understand your grief, you will feel it loosen, soften, and finally exhale. Imagine for a moment what it would mean to breathe without weight, what it would mean to inhale light and exhale sorrow. So let me ask you, what is the one grief you've carried all these years but never released? Write it in the comments below. Who knows? Your words may become the key that lightens someone else's lungs too, and if these words already feel like home to your soul, then stay close. Like this video, subscribe to this sacred space, the Spine Gospel, and share it with someone who still carries unspoken silence within. Because sometimes one whisper is all it takes to set a soul free. There was a woman who sat in the dark every night. Her room was not empty, yet it felt like a graveyard of silence. The world outside kept moving. Traffic lights flickered, neighbors laughed, life went on, but inside her nothing moved. Only her breath, heavy and uneven, breaking the stillness of the night. She would close her eyes and press her hand against her chest, as if trying to hold herself together. The weight she carried was invisible to everyone else, but to her it was suffocating. It was not just the weight of sorrow, it was the weight of words never spoken, tears never shed, goodbyes never said. Her lungs had become a prison where grief lived, locked away and restless. Perhaps you've known nights like these too, when your body breathes but your soul refuses. When the air fills your lungs but never seems to reach your spirit, when silence becomes heavier than sound. Her grief had no name. It was not a single story, but 1,000 fragments. A friend lost too early, a betrayal that left wounds, dreams that withered before they were born. Every time she wanted to cry, someone told her to be strong. Every time her voice trembled with truth, she swallowed it back, until silence became her second skin, until sighs became her language. Every inhale felt like lifting a stone. Every exhale felt like burying it inside again. Her lungs were not simply breathing. They were carrying a storm no one could see, and yet in the daylight she smiled. She answered questions politely, laughed at jokes she didn't find funny, played her role in the theater of everyday life. People looked at her and thought, "She's fine, she's strong." They never saw the war inside her chest. They never saw how at night her breaths grew shorter, her shoulders caved in, and her ribs ached from holding back sobs. It is strange how grief works. It hides in plain sight, wearing masks, sitting in meetings, pouring tea, nodding during conversations. And then, when the lights go out, it takes off its disguise and suffocates you in your own bed. She would lie there, staring at the ceiling, each sigh louder than her heartbeat, each silence longer than the last. Have you felt this too? That strange ache in your chest, as if your own body is punishing you for holding too much? That tightening in your lungs, as if they are crying for you because you refuse to? One night the weight grew too heavy. She woke up gasping, clutching her chest, afraid that her lungs had finally surrendered. Her hands trembled. Her breath felt sharp, jagged, as though it might cut her from the inside. Tears came, but not freely, half-born, half-buried, leaving her throat raw. It was as if her grief had turned into a voice that refused to scream and instead pressed against her ribs, begging to be released. She sat there for hours, broken between breaths. The silence in the room was deafening. Even the ticking clock felt cruel, reminding her of seconds she couldn't fully live. In that moment she realized how long she had been carrying ghosts in her chest, how many sighs she had turned into chains, how many unspoken words had become bricks inside her lungs. And then something small happened, something that no one else would notice, but for her it was the beginning of change. She placed her palm over her chest, not to silence it, but to listen. She let herself feel the rise and fall of her breath, uneven as it was. For the first time, she didn't fight the weight. She surrendered to it. She whispered, not to anyone, but to herself, "I hear you." Her chest rose with a shaky inhale. A deep sigh escaped, longer than before. It was not relief, not yet. But it was different. Lighter, softer, like a tiny crack in a wall too long fortified. She could feel something stir within her. A flicker of release, a hint of freedom she had almost forgotten. That night she did not heal. But something shifted. The silence that once felt like punishment began to feel like a doorway. For the first time in years, her breath didn't only carry sorrow, it carried a whisper of hope. And as she drifted into restless sleep, her lungs carried that secret, that grief was not her enemy. It was her unspoken story waiting to be heard. Silence can feel cruel. It can feel like the universe has turned its back, like God has packed his voice in shadows and walked away. But what if silence is not abandonment? What if silence is the hidden language of heaven? Think of it. God doesn't shout through the storms. He whispers in the stillness. The loud world outside might keep spinning, but the deepest truths are spoken in pauses, in breaths, in the spaces between words. Your grief, the heavy sighs locked in your lungs, might not be emptiness at all. They might be invitations. Invitations to lean closer, to listen deeper, to discover a whisper that can only be heard in the absence of noise. Maybe this is why you are here. Because your silence is not a void, it is a doorway. There is something sacred about breath itself. In ancient language, the word for breath and the word for spirit were the same. In Hebrew, ruach. In Greek, pneuma. Breath was never just air, it was life, it was spirit, it was God moving through dust. When your lungs ache with grief, they are not just holding pain, they are holding prayer. Every inhale becomes a reaching, every exhale becomes a surrender. Even when you don't speak, your body is speaking for you. The sigh you release in the middle of the night, that sigh is a prayer. The breath you take when you feel like breaking. That breath is sacred. You may not have realized it, but your lungs have been praying for you all along. What if the heaviness you feel in your chest is not just sorrow, but the sound of your soul calling out to God? Grief is not the end of your story. It is a season. Like winter, it strips the branches bare, leaving you exposed, trembling, alone. But winter is not death. Winter is rest, preparation, waiting for spring. The desert looks empty, but it is where prophets heard the voice of God. The eclipse looks like darkness, but it is only a shadow passing over light. Your silence, your ache, your sighs, they are not permanent prisons. They are seasons. The tree loses its leaves, but it is not dead. It is waiting. Maybe you are not being destroyed. Maybe you are being prepared. So I ask you, could it be that your lungs ache, not because you are broken, but because you are being remade? Grief is not only pain. It is sacred space. When your lungs carry grief, they are carrying an altar. The heaviness inside is not empty. It is holy ground. Every tear unshed, every sigh unspoken, is like incense rising, unseen yet deeply felt. See, in deserts people encounter the divine. In silence, saints heard whispers. In shadows, light grew clearer. What if your lungs, your chest that feels heavy, are not betraying you? What if they are hosting God's silence, waiting for you? To hear it, maybe your pain is not your curse. Maybe it is your invitation. So here is a gentle truth. When you sit in silence, don't fight it. Don't rush to fill it with noise. Listen, place your hand on your chest, feel your lungs rise and fall, and realize that every breath is more than survival. It is communion. It is spirit moving through you. Your lungs are not your enemy. They are your guides. Your grief is not a punishment. It is a doorway. And one day, in the middle of your sighs, you may notice something strange. Silence will feel different. It will feel less like absence and more like love, less like punishment and more like presence. And in that quiet shift, you may find yourself breathing freely again, not because grief has left you, but because it has taught you how to listen. Silence can feel cruel. It can feel like the universe has turned its back, like God has packed his voice in shadows and walked away. But what if silence is not abandonment? What if silence is the hidden language of heaven? Think of it. God doesn't shout through the storms. He whispers in the stillness. The loud world outside might keep spinning, but the deepest truths are spoken in pauses, in breaths, in the spaces between words. Your grief, the heavy sighs locked in your lungs, might not be emptiness at all. They might be invitations. Invitations to lean closer, to listen deeper, to discover a whisper that can only be heard in the absence of noise. Maybe this is why you are here. Because your silence is not a void, it is a doorway. There is something sacred about breath itself. In ancient language, the word for breath and the word for spirit were the same. In Hebrew, ruach, in Greek, pneuma. Breath was never just air, it was life, it was spirit. It was God moving through dust. When your lungs ache with grief, they are not just holding pain, they are holding prayer. Every inhale becomes a reaching, every exhale becomes a surrender. Even when you don't speak, your body is speaking for you. The sigh you release in the middle of the night, that sigh is a prayer. The breath you take when you feel like breaking, that breath is sacred. You may not have realized it, but your lungs have been praying for you all along. What if the heaviness you feel in your chest is not just sorrow, but the sound of your soul calling out to God? Grief is not the end of your story. It is a season. Like winter, it strips the branches bare, leaving you exposed, trembling, alone. But winter is not death. Winter is rest, preparation, waiting for spring. The desert looks empty, but it is where prophets heard the voice of God. The eclipse looks like darkness, but it is only a shadow passing over light. Your silence, your ache, your sighs, they are Not permanent prisons, they are seasons. The tree loses its leaves, but it is not dead. It is waiting. Maybe you are not being destroyed. Maybe you are being prepared. So I ask you, could it be that your lungs ache, not because you are broken, but because you are being remade? Grief is not only pain, it is sacred space. When your lungs carry grief, they are carrying an altar. The heaviness inside is not empty. It is holy ground. Every tear unshed, every sigh unspoken is like incense rising, unseen yet deeply felt. You see, in deserts, people encounter the divine. In silence, saints heard whispers. In shadows, light grew clearer. What if your lungs, your chest that feels heavy, are not betraying you? What if they are hosting God's silence, waiting for you to hear it? Maybe your pain is not your curse. Maybe it is your invitation. So here is a gentle truth. When you sit in silence, don't fight it. Don't rush to fill it with noise. Listen. Place your hand on your chest, feel your lungs rise and fall, and realize that every breath is more than survival. It is communion. It is spirit moving through you. Your lungs are not your enemy. They are your guides. Your grief is not a punishment. It is a doorway. And one day, in the middle of your sighs, you may notice something strange. Silence will feel different. It will feel less like absence and more like love, less like punishment and more like presence. And in that quiet shift, you may find yourself breathing freely again, not because grief has left you, but because it has taught you how to listen. There comes a night when the chest feels too heavy to rise again. A night when every inhale cuts like glass, and every exhale feels like it might be the last. The silence inside no longer comforts, it suffocates. The body trembles, the lungs beg for release, and yet grief refuses to loosen its grip. It is here, at this breaking point, that a soul feels most alone. Like standing in a storm with no shelter, the rain pounding without mercy, the wind clawing without pause. You look for a voice to calm the storm, but all you hear is the echo of your own shallow breath. This is not just sorrow, it is collapse. The weight of unspoken words, buried memories, and unshed tears press against the ribs until the body shakes from the inside out. And then, something happens. Not an answer, not a miracle, just a soundless cry. There comes a moment when even the strongest cannot pretend anymore. When the mask falls, the dam breaks, and all that remains is a body trembling with grief. The mouth opens, but no words come. Instead, the lungs release a sigh so deep it feels like the soul itself is exhaling. This is the cry without words, the kind of cry that only silence understands. It is not loud, but it is real. It does not beg, but it surrenders. And in that moment, you realize your lungs have always been praying for you. Every sigh you held back, every deep breath in the middle of pain, your body was whispering to God even when your lips stayed closed. Have you ever been there? At that edge, where speech abandons you and only your breath carries your grief? Where the act of breathing itself feels like the only prayer you can still offer? It is often at this very point of collapse that something subtle shifts. Not in the sky, not in the world outside, but within. At first, it feels like a pause in the storm. The tightness in your chest softens just slightly, like a thread loosening after years of knots. The breath, once shallow and broken, stretches just a little deeper. And then comes a warmth, not overwhelming, not dramatic, just a gentle presence, wrapping itself around your lungs, as if silence itself has turned into a blanket. You realize you are still breathing. You realize the air has not left you, and that realization feels like a hand you did not expect to hold. The fog doesn't disappear all at once, but it begins to lift. A light filters through the cracks, not blinding, but steady. And for the first time in what feels like years, your body inhales not just air, but space. This is the quiet realization. Silence was never punishment. Silence was presence. The grief inside your lungs did not vanish, but it changed shape. It no longer crushed. It began to carry you. It was as if sorrow had been waiting, not to destroy you, but to teach you how to listen differently. Like rain soaking into dry soil, love seeped into the emptiness. The heaviness turned into depth, and the depth turned into something sacred. The silence that once suffocated you began to whisper, and the whisper said, "You are not alone." Could it be that your grief is not leaving you, but guiding you? Could it be that every ache in your chest is teaching you to love differently, to breathe differently, to live more tenderly than before? This was the turning point, not an escape from grief, but a surrender into it. Not silence as a void, but silence as a presence. Not grief as a prison, but grief as a passage. The storm did not disappear, but you found shelter within it. The lungs still carried sorrow, but now they carried love too, and then silence felt like love. There is a silence that doesn't wound, but heals. It is the kind of silence that doesn't shout answers, but opens hidden doors. At first, you thought the stillness in your chest was emptiness. You thought the quiet around you meant abandonment, but now you begin to realize silence is not absence. Silence is presence. It is a mirror, still unmoving, yet it reflects everything you are carrying. What if this silence in your life has been guiding you all along? What if the breath caught in your lungs was not a cage, but a compass? The lungs are not just flesh and air. They are sacred carriers of every sigh you have ever released, every sob you swallowed, every prayer you whispered when no one was listening. They have been holding the echoes of your grief, like a temple holds candles in the dark. Every inhale has been a gift, every exhale a letting go. Ancient wisdom has always whispered this truth. The breath was the first gift given to man. God breathed into Adam's nostrils the breath of life, and he became a living soul. Breath is not survival. Breath is spirit. Each time you inhale, you are reminded. Life is still within you. Each time you exhale, you are reminded. Release is possible. Do you see it now? Your lungs were never betraying you. They were praying for you. Grief, too, has been misunderstood. We treat it like an enemy to be defeated, a shadow to be erased. But grief is not the opposite of love. It is proof of it. Grief is the river that flows only because love was once there. Like water carving stone, grief reshapes you. Slowly, painfully, but faithfully. It does not erase your love. It deepens it. It teaches you the shape of absence so you may cherish. The presence. What has your grief taught you about love? Pause for a moment. Let the question breathe inside you. There is a wisdom that only stillness can give. Seeds do not grow when they are disturbed. They grow hidden in the soil, in the quiet dark, long before the sun rises. In the same way, your healing has not been absent. It has been forming quietly. Within you, beneath the surface of your awareness, waiting for you to stop fighting long enough to notice. Stillness is not weakness. It is readiness. It is the space where the soul and God finally meet without interruption. When you sit in silence, you may think nothing is happening. But like dawn breaking after the longest night, something invisible is shifting. You begin to feel it not as a thought, but as a breath. Soft, steady, undeniable. Can you feel it now? That gentle whisper in your lungs, the one saying, "I am still here with you." And so the invitation comes, soft and steady. What would happen if you stopped running from your grief? What would happen if you sat with it, listened to it, let it breathe with you instead of against you? Perhaps the stillness you fear is the very place your healing is waiting. Perhaps the silence is not emptiness, but God's hand resting lightly on your chest telling you, breathe, you are not alone. This is the wisdom hidden in your lungs. This is the lesson carved by grief. Silence can carry love. Breath can carry prayer. And stillness can carry healing. And it is from here, from this sacred pause, that you begin to wonder, how do I carry this wisdom into the rhythm of daily life? How do I let this breath reshape the way I wake, the way I rest, the way I live? Healing doesn't live in grand gestures. It lives in the small, quiet things, the breath you notice, the silence you allow, the little releases you choose each day. Your grief will not vanish overnight, but it can learn to breathe with you if you let it. These practices are not rules. They are whispers, gentle ways of carrying the wisdom of your lungs into the rhythm of your life. 1. Morning ritual of breath. When you wake, before the world rushes in with its noise, give yourself 2 minutes of stillness. Sit on the edge of your bed, close your eyes, and simply notice your breath. No forcing, no chanting, no performance, just the sacred rise and fall of life moving through you. Let the first voice you hear each morning be the voice of your breath. Let it remind you that you are alive, that you are held, that today begins, not with chaos, but with presence. Ask yourself gently, what would shift in my day if I began it with silence instead of noise? 2. Daily act of release. Every evening, before you surrender to sleep, take a small piece of paper. Write down one thing you no longer wish to carry. A memory, a worry, an old resentment. Name it, even if your hand trembles. Then breathe deeply, and as you exhale, let that paper carry the weight you've released. Tear it, fold it, or place it away. It doesn't matter. What matters is the rhythm of surrender, like leaves falling from a tree. Let what is heavy find the ground. Grief doesn't leave in one flood. It releases itself in drops, in whispers, in daily letting go. 3. Stillness in the midst of noise. Your day will always be filled with movement, demands, and distractions, but within every day hides a pocket of stillness. Maybe it's during your lunch break, maybe while sipping tea, or in the quiet just before sleep. In that small window, step away. Put the phone down. Close your eyes. Inhale slowly, exhale deeply, and let your soul catch up with your body. Even 1 minute of pure stillness can be sacred. 1 minute can remind you that you are more than your tasks, more than your losses, more than your grief. 4. Silence in relationships. Silence is not just something you share with yourself. It can also heal the space between you and others. The next time you sit with someone you love, resist the urge to fill every gap with words. Let the silence breathe between you. Silence between people is not emptiness, it is presence. Like two trees standing side by side, roots intertwined beneath the soil, you don't need to speak to know you are connected. Sometimes the holiest thing you can offer another soul is your quiet company. 5. Final gentle invitation. These practices may seem small, a breath, a pause, a silence shared, but each one is a thread, and together they weave a new rhythm for your soul. Remember, this is not about fixing grief. It is about walking with it, hand in hand, until its weight becomes light. Until silence no longer feels like emptiness, but like love waiting to be heard. And as you try these practices, ask yourself, which of these small acts speaks most to my soul? Share it in the comments below. Your words may become the mirror someone else needs. You are not broken. You are unfolding. Grief has not come to shatter you. It has come to carve space inside you for something deeper, softer, eternal. Every tear, every silence, every breath that trembled in your lungs has been shaping you, not destroying you. Your breath was never just air. It was always a prayer. And your silence was never empty. It was always the place where God whispered, gently, waiting for you to listen. So if you've carried grief like a weight pressing against your chest, remember this: your lungs are not prisons. They are temples. They are sacred vessels, learning to hold both the sorrow and the healing at once. The cracks in your soul are not flaws. They are windows where light slips in. The ache in your chest is not a sign of weakness. It is proof that love has lived there. Grief does not erase love. It deepens it. Maybe this is what it means to heal, not to erase the pain, but to walk with it until it softens into wisdom, to realize that silence isn't the end of your story, but the beginning of a new chapter, where your soul learns to breathe differently, and perhaps even now you are learning to breathe again, slowly, tenderly, fully. I want to ask you something. What silence in your life has taught you the most? Let your answer be more than a comment. It could be a lantern for someone else who is wandering in the dark. When we share our silences, we discover we were never truly alone. The grief you release might become the comfort someone else is searching. For this space, the Spine Gospel isn't just a channel. It is a gathering, a quiet circle where souls come to remember that they are not forgotten, not unseen, that their breath matters, that their silence speaks. If these whispers felt like home, stay close, subscribe, and let your soul find its rhythm. Here. And if someone you love is still carrying grief silently in their chest, share this with them. Maybe your whisper becomes their healing. Until we meet again, breathe gently. For every breath is proof. You are still here. You are still becoming.